Yeah, so I think this is a great slide for me to sort of talk through two different models, and I'll try to be brief, but there's actually a paper I presented when Oracle Cloud first was introduced by Oracle. It was a Fusion product back then, and one of my colleagues, Nigel King, was responsible for building the security model for the cloud. So he came to me and said, we're really looking to educate the market about, what the cloud is going to look like and how we move our ERP on-premise customers to this new model. And I was in conversation with many customers back 5 years ago now that were considering moving to the cloud. Now it's a no-brainer for most of our customers that want to be in the cloud. The questions were coming up that I was just surprised to hear. That the security models, people assumed that they were going to be very similar. So cloud is a RBAC model, whereas the customized model that EBS uses is fairly, old, I guess is a word. It was developed, Scott and I were talking maybe in the 80s or 90s, so it's fairly complex and old. But if you've gone through a process of doing all this hard work and you've paid consultants and auditors, in some cases I've seen customers spend millions of dollars on getting the security right. Especially if they haven't done it in the beginning of the project, which many didn't with EBS, because it was, they've been using EBS for 20 plus years, and it was prior to even the Sarbanes-Oxley here in the US. So the security model, you've gone through that remediation process and you invested a lot of time in it, and now you want to move over to a security model that is more RBAC centric. So the two security models, if you're looking to the left of your slide, you'll see in Oracle eBusiness Suite, it's users that have one or more responsibilities, that have one or more menus and submenus, functions and subfunctions, and then forms. So that's the security model that you're trying to protect yourself against. And just in case of eBusiness Suite, because that's a mature product, much more mature than cloud. I think the number's actually gone up, Emma, than what I have here. Last time I checked, and we have data from 200 some customers, so we do some aggregating and best practices off the actual data. So I've seen like 40,000 is a very common number for our customers. They have 40,000 plus functions that they need to analyze in order to protect against access risks, including segregation of duties. So clearly not any customer that I've run into uses everything that Oracle has put out there, which is hundreds of modules on this more mature platform. However, when they do run into these issues, we do need to analyze all that. And as you might imagine, you can't just look at a user like Scott and Brian and say, oh, I can eyeball how many functions they would have, and then I can, based on that eyeballing, I can determine if they should have access or not have access. It's nearly an impossible task. So our mature customers that are staying on eBusiness Suite, we find that they bring in outside help. They sometimes spend millions of dollars, and then they lose that useful value, leaves with those consultants and outside help. So even in-house, you have a turnover. So many of my calls that come in for help are, hey, we had all this settled down and now we've lost a few people, or we've changed the company, added a new module, and we're back to ground zero. Can you come in and help us automate that? So where SafePaaS can help you here, along with our partners like Brian, for if you're an on-premise customer, is to kind of quickly analyze that. And we have some health checks and so forth that Scott and Emma can tell you more about, which will, within a few days of time, analyze all of that risk and give you a nice, pretty report that you can take to your management and your, as part of your pre-audit, if you will. So you're not caught off guard when your auditors produce those results, and that goes straight to your audit committee. So unfortunately, this happened more often than I'd like to think, but it's essentially one of the things that a pattern I see in the industry constantly, where people have changes in their people, process, technology, and it ends up becoming a crisis that we're asked to help paratroop in and solve. And we can do that, but we'd rather work with you when you have more time to plan and do things right, because reactive work, in my mind, doesn't generate the best value for our customers. So engage with us, run some of these tests, work with Brian's team to test out some of the current controls you have. Whether you're a public company or a private company, doesn't matter. Good controls are good business. So that's basically I wanted to talk about. Now, Brian touched on something that's really we're seeing a lot more on the bottom screen, which is that cloud customer. Cloud customer, generally a new customer, either they're moving from Oracle, in which case we have, like I said, this white paper that kind of gives you an idea on how you can retain some of that investment you've made in building good controls in your on-premise EBS. But also, let's say you're coming off completely something different, like SAP or something. So you're just starting off this project. One of the things where we can help you as part of your pre-audit, back to that planning thing that we talked about, is to help you look at those seeded roles that are full of those profile problems that Brian was talking about. So, if you are a cloud ERP customer, you know this, that when you look at the GL role, GL can enter and post. They can maybe even do some subledger stuff, which is a big no-no in financial misstatement. Same thing with the procurement responsibilities. The purchasing manager can do approve purchase orders, create purchase orders, release invoices. So, those are the kind of things we're seeing on a daily basis from our cloud customers that are reporting these issues. And then you have on top of that this quarterly patching issue. So you have a continuous change management control on top of all this. So whether you're starting with the project or you've been live with cloud ERP for the last few years, we see both of those cases. Customers are really struggling with that profile that Brian talked about. And what we do to help those customers is through our roles manager, which is a tool we have specially created for customers that are dealing with that problem. A customer comes to mind as you guys were talking, which is one of the world's, I think, the largest rental car company, global rental car company, and they brought in a #1 global, probably a #1 computer company to help them do that. And they were struggling with this problem, and it's probably a few years old, so not something just today, but they were just churning, and the project was going over budget because they just couldn't get their roles right. So they called us up, and we trained them on Roles Manager, did some services around it, and they were able to save $200,000, recover $200,000 in costs. And that's one of the paper we have presented at Open World, and probably is on our website as well. So those are the kind of real world examples where you start off that project that Brian had on the previous slide, you run into a problem, and now you got to do remediation, right? So you can take advantage of templates we have built for those specific roles in the past. You can use our technology and tools to be able to refine those and simulate them, right, before you touch your ERP system. So you can say, okay, what if I gave GL Manager the ability to reverse journal entries and create invoices? That's a liability, because now they can hide that liability, and that's a segregation of duty violation. So those are the types of simulations you'll be able to do on SafePaaS, which will make sure that before your auditors get in, your environment is already clean as it can be. And things that are not clean, you can have a good explanation, because your IT folks need access. You have compensating controls. All of that work can be done, and it'll save you 10x in your substantive testing.